Good afternoon, dear students. Since previous sessions, we are discussing about the Salt March and the Civil Disobedience Movement. Salt March and the Civil Disobedience Movement. See, just I would like to revise once again about the Salt March. So, actually, Mahatma Gandhiji was sent a letter on 31st January 1930 to Viceroy Lord Irving. The letter stated that 11 demands. So, here in that 11 demands, some of the demands were of general interest and others were specific demands of different classes, from industrialists to peasants. See, the idea was to make the demands wide ranging so that all classes within the Indian society could identify with them and everyone could be brought together in the united campaign. So the most ring of all was the demand to abolish the salt tax. All of you knows that salt it was one of the essential which was consumed by even the poorest of the poor and even the rich class people. Without salt we cannot prepare anything else. It is one of the essential food item. The tax on salt and the government monopoly over its production, Mahatma Gandhiji was declared, revealed the most oppressive face of British rule. After that, Mahatma Gandhi's letter was, in a way, an ultimatum. If the demands were not fulfilled by 11th March, the letter stated very clearly that the Congress would launch a civil disobedience campaign. So the same it was happened. The Lord Viceroy, Viceroy Lord Irving, he was unwilling to negotiate. So Mahatma Gandhi was started is the famous Salt March, accompanied by 78 of his trusted volunteers from the ashrama, from Sabarmati ashram. Understood now. So, along with 78 members, Mahatma Gandhi was began the salt march from the Sabarmati ashram. See, the Sabarmati was over, the march, not Sabarmati. So, Sabarmati to Dandi. It is about the distance between 240 miles. So, these in the march, the war, over 240 miles it was covered in 24 days. The volunteers walked on 24 days, that's about 10 miles a day. And the thousands people they came to hear Mahatma Gandhi's wherever Mahatma Gandhi was stopped. And he told them what he meant by Swaraj and urged them to peacefully defy the British. Defy the British. On 6th April, he was reached Dandi and ceremonially violated the law by manufacturing salt by boiling seawater. And afterwards, dear students, this marked the beginning of the civil disobedience movement. Then all of you knows that how was this civil disobedience movement? It was different from the non-cooperation movement. See, people were now asked not only to refuse cooperation with the British, so as they had done in 1921 to 23. So, but also to break colonial law. So thousands in different parts of the country broke the salt law, manufactured salt, and demonstrated in front of the government salt factories. As the movement spread, foreign cloth was boycotted in the same, and once again the liquor shops were picketed, and peasants refused to pay the taxes also, and even the chowkidar taxes also, and village officials so they were resigned, and in many places forest people violated forest law. That is about going into reserved forest to collect wood and even to graze their cattle also. So, worried by the developments, the colonial government began arresting the Congress leaders one by one. This led to violent clashes in many places. Abdul Ghaffar Khan was a devout disciple of Mahatma Gandhi. He was arrested in April 1930. Angry crowds demonstrated in the streets of Peshawar after this, facing armored cars and police firing. Many they were killed. A month later, even Mahatma Gandhi himself he was arrested. Industrial workers in Sholapur they were attacked police stations, municipal buildings and law courts, and even they were attacked railway stations also. See, whatever all structures that symbolized the British rule, so they were attacked everywhere. A frightened government responded with a brutal repression policy of brutal repression. Peaceful satyagrahis were attacked. Women and children they were beaten very badly, and about 1 lakh people they were arrested. So all these things we learned. Just I remember once again. So in such a situation, Mahatma Gandhi was once again decided to call off the movement and enter into a pact with Irvin on 5th March 1931. It's called Gandhi-Irvin Pact. Gandhi-Irvin Pact. ಗಾಂಧಿ-ಇರ್ವಿನ್ ಒಪ್ಪಂದ ಅಥವಾ ಗಾಂಧಿ-ಇರ್ವಿನ್ ಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಅಂತೇಳಿ ಕರೀತಾರೆ. That is on March 5th March on 1931. Gandhi-Irvin Pact. See, what is the significance of this Gandhi-Irvin Pact? By this Gandhi-Irvin Pact, Gandhiji consented to participate in a round table conference. So Gandhiji consented to participate in a round table conference. The Congress had boycotted the first round table conference. So please keep it in your mind. So Gandhiji was allowed, Gandhiji was consented to participate in a round table conference. But the Congress had boycotted the first round table conference in London. So the round table conference were arranged in London. The government agreed to release the political prisoners. The colonial government agreed to release the political prisoners. In December 1931, Gandhiji went to London for the conference. But the negotiation broke down and he was returned disappointed. So in the first round table conference he was not participated. In the second one he was participated in December 1931. But the thing is that the negotiation broke down and Gandhiji was disappointed and returned back to India. And Mahatma Gandhi was discovered that the government had begun a new cycle of repression. The colonial government discovered that a new cycle of repression. Abdul Ghaffar Khan and Jawaharlal Nehru were both in jail. The Congress had been declared illegal. The Congress political party, the organization that was declared by the colonial state, it is one of the illegal one. And a series of measures had been imposed to prevent meetings, demonstrations and boycotts. They were not allowed. So with a great apprehension, Mahatma Gandhi relaunched the civil disobedience movement once again. For over a year, the movement continued, but 1934, it lost its momentum. So Mahatma Gandhi decided to call off the movement, and he was entered into the Gandhi-Irvin Pact on 5th March 1931, and he was consented to participate in the round table conference because the Congress had boycotted the first round table conference in London. and the government to agree to release the political prisoners. And in December 1931, Gandhiji went to London for the conference, but the negotiation broken, and Gandhiji was disappointed and returned to India. And it was discovered that government had begun a new cycle of repression. Ghaffar Khan and Jawaharlal Nehru both were in jail, and the Congress had been declared illegal by the colonial state. And a series of measures are imposed to prevent meetings, demonstrations, and boycott. With the great apprehension, Mahatma Gandhiji relaunched the civil disobedience movement, but forever the movement was continued. But by 1934, it lost its momentum. Now let us discuss about how participants saw this movement. How how participants saw this movement. See, the different social group that were participated in the civil disobedience movement. So, behind that we should think why these the different social groups they were joined the movement. What were their ideals and what did Swaraj mean to them? How the Swaraj, the concept, the idea of Swaraj, it was understood by those different social groups. Let us discuss about all this. Because dear students, at the time, so there were different social groups, they were participated in the civil disobedience movement. And we should think why did they join the movement, these different social groups? And what were their ideas? And what did Swaraj mean to them? How they were understood about the concept, the idea of the Swaraj. So in the countryside, rich peasants and communities, rich peasants and communities, rich peasants and communities. See, these rich peasants and communities, especially like the Patidars of Gujarat and Jats of Uttar Pradesh. So, who are the Patidars of Gujarat and the Patidars of Gujarat and Jats of Uttar Pradesh. See, these Patidars and Jats were rich peasants and communities. Rich peasants and communities. So here, they were active in the civil disobedience movement. Both the peasant communities, these rich peasants communities such as Patidars and Jats. So Patidars in Gujarat and Jats in Uttar Pradesh. So they were active in the civil disobedience movement. Being producers of commercial crops, they were very hard hit by the trade depression and falling prices. So they were actually producers of commercial crops. They were very hard hit by the trade depression and falling prices. As their cash income, what happened? Their cash income that disappeared. They found it impossible to pay the government's revenue demand, whatever the revenue fixed by the colonial state. So to pay the revenue, it's become very difficult for these peasants communities. And the refusal of the government to reduce the revenue demand led to widespread resentment. The government also refused to reduce the amount of the revenue. So these rich peasants became enthusiastic. These peasants they were became enthusiastic supporters of the civil disobedience movement because of this reason. They were organized their communities and at times forcing reluctant members to participate in the boycott programs. For them, the fight for Swaraj was so these Patidars and Jats, so they were understood themselves. Fight for Swaraj was a struggle against high revenues. Got it, dear students? Fight for Swaraj means it was a struggle against high revenues. But they were deeply disappointed when the movement was called off in 1931. Without what happened because the revenue was not revised, without revising the revenue rate, the civil disobedience movement was called off. So that's why. So they were became more disappointed. So when the movement was restarted in 1932, when the civil disobedience movement it was relaunched, restarted in 1932. So many of these peasants communities, so they were refused to participate in the civil disobedience movement because in the first only they were became more disappointed because the civil disobedience movement called off without reducing, without revising the revenue rate. Actually, the concept of Swaraj, it was understood by these peasants communities, such as Patidars in Gujarat and then Jats in Uttar Pradesh. They were understood that the concept of the Swaraj, that means that is about struggle against high revenues. Struggle against high revenues. See, the poorer peasantry, what about the poor peasantry class? So they were not just interested in the lowering of the revenue demand. The poorer peasantry were not just interested in the lowering of the revenue demand. So many of them were small tenants cultivating land they had rented from landlords. So many of those peasants. So they were actually small tenants cultivating land and they had rented from landlords. As the depression continued and cash incomes dwindled, the small tenants found it difficult to pay their rent. They were unable to pay their rent because what happened? Their income completely dwindled. They wanted the unpaid rent to the landlord to be remitted. They wanted the unpaid rent to the landlord to be remitted. They joined a variety of radical movements, often led by socialists and communists also. Apparently of raising issues that might upset the rich peasants and landlords. The Congress was unwilling to support no rent campaigns. In the most of the places, the Indian National Congress, so it was unwilling to support no rent campaigns in most places. So what happened now? The relationship between poor peasants and the Congress remained uncertain. Because here the Congress was not supported to the poor peasants. Why? Because no, if suppose if they are going to extend their support for their no rent campaigns, then what would happen now? The rich peasants and the landlords, so they were not going to cooperate with the Congress. So they were feared about this. So that's what the Congress was unwilling to support the small peasants, especially their no rent campaign. So that's what the relationship between the poor peasants and Congress are uncertain. So this is about the peasants. And what about the business class? So this is about the rich peasants and poor peasants. How they were understood the idea of the Swaraj in this way. And what about business class people? How did they relate to this civil disobedience movement for business class? See, during the First World War, Indian merchants and industrialists had made use of profits and they were become more powerful during the First World War. So businessmen in our country. So how did they relate to the civil disobedience movement? Whether they were participating and what about and how they were understood the concept of the Swaraj. So here, during the First World War, the Indian merchants and industrialists had made huge profits and they were become more powerful also. So keen on expanding their business. So they were expanded their business. They now reached against colonial policies that restricted business activities. Now after that what happened? The colonial policies restricted the business activities. So the business class people, the merchants and the industrialists, so they wanted production against imports of foreign goods. They wanted protection against imports of foreign goods and a rupee sterling foreign exchange ratio that would discourage imports. A rupee sterling foreign exchange ratio that would discourage imports. To organize the business interests, they formed the Indian Industrial and Commercial Congress. They were formed the Industrial, Indian Industrial and Commercial Congress. So they were formed actually Indian Industrial and Commercial Congress. Indian Industrial and Commercial Congress in 1921. In 1921. I'm sorry, dear students, in 1920. So, the business class people, the merchants, the industrialists understood now to organize the business interest. So, they were formed the Indian Industrial and Commercial Congress in 1920 and the Federation of the Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industries in 1927. So it was formed in 1920 and again in 1927 they were formed the Federation of Indian Chamber of Commerce Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industries. In 1927. Understood now, dear students, which is called as FICCI. FICCI. That means Federation of Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industries. So here they were organized these two associations. So one is the Indian Industrial and Commerce Congress, which was founded in 1920, and then in 1927 they were organized Federation of Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industries also. So here, dear students, These organizations were led by prominent industrialists. So these organizations were led by prominent industrialists such as Purushottam Das, Thakur Das, Purushottam Das, Thakur Das, and G.D. Birla. Understood. So here, Purushottam Das, Thakur Das, and G.D. Birla, they were industrialists actually. Understood now. So the industrialists like Purushottam Das and Purushottam Das, Thakur Das, and G.D. Birla, the industrialists attacked colonial control over the industrialists, they were attacked colonial control over the Indian economy and supported the civil disobedience movement when it was launched in the first time. So these industrialists, they were supported the civil disobedience movement when it was launched in the first time. They gave financial assistance and even refused to buy or sell imported goods also. Most businessmen came to see Swaraj as a time when colonial restrictions on business would no longer exist and trade and industry would flourish without constraints. But after the failure of the Roundtable Conference, business groups were no longer uniformly enthusiastic. They were apprehensive of the spread of militant activities and worried about prolonged disruption of business and as well as of the growing influence of socialism amongst the younger members of the Congress. Got it now, dear students? So, about this, I am going to continue in the next class. Thank you. Have a nice day.